to our show, The Crossover, a show about bridging gaps between Jews and Christians. Today we're at the Holocaust Museum of Houston, and I'm standing here at the entrance. The door is over here, and it reminds me of the first time that I've ever came here. And I started crying before even opening the door, because what I realized is that I was not just walking into any museum. Usually when you think of going to a museum, you're going to see the works of beauty that man creates, not works of ugliness and darkness. And it hit me just as I was pulling on the door what I was about to walk into. And it's a very moving, it's really a memorial to an ugly time in history. And we hope that you will learn a lot from this mini tour that Steve Johnson, who's the Director of Public Relations from the museum, is going to give us.
Hi, welcome to Holocaust Museum Houston. I'm Steve Johnson, and we're going to take a quick tour of the museum, starting with the permanent exhibit, Bearing Witness, A Community Remembers. And it has this title due to the fact that it is bearing witness from our survivor community. A lot of survivors settled here in Houston after the war, and it's because of them that this museum is here today. We do, of course, want everybody who comes and visits to be affected and to bear witness to what happened and think about how they treat people and how they act with other people who are different from themselves. So this is Bearing Witness, A Community Remembers, the permanent exhibit. Let's go inside. All right, we're inside the permanent exhibit, and the exhibit starts off with color and lights and sound. We'll take a quick look at some just Jewish items. This is to give an idea of some of the things that were lost and destroyed during the Holocaust. A lot of Torah scrolls were destroyed. Some of them were actually saved by the Nazis, who had intended to create a museum of a lost race. Moving on into the exhibit, we'll take a look at our wall of survivors here, and we have individual stories of the various survivors. Again, Bearing Witness, A Community Remembers, we have the personal stories of our local Holocaust survivors, Benjamin Wasserman, Herman Rath. You have on down the line, Stan and Rose Fogel, Chaya Verveer, Zoli Zamir. These are people that you may see in the community. You may know these people in your workplace. And above, what you see are pictures of those people's relatives. These are people, many of whom died in the Holocaust. What you're seeing and how this affects children coming here is, you can relate to this. These are like pictures that you have of your grandparents and your family pictures, school pictures, formal, family portraits, vacation outings. There's different things, out at the lake, having a snowball fight, all kinds of different things. And this is just to show that, life before the Holocaust was in fact normal and standard. It's just no different than life any place else. However, it is here in America or in Europe. And so you have life before the Holocaust. Also, we do have a history of anti-Semitism, and what you have there are just some edicts going clear back to the year 306, and that is interesting because you will see a lot of these same edicts and laws and things that had been enforced against Jewish people come up again in the Nuremberg laws when Hitler was justifying his anti-Jewish campaign and enacting laws that were extremely prejudicial, that separated the Jews from society in general. As you go around the corner, we start to move into Hitler, his book Mein Kampf, and the rise of the Nazi Party. What you'll learn in the museum is how the Nazi Party came into being, and the fact that they were a small minority. They were not ever a majority. They were not ever supported by a lot of people in Germany, and how this small minority managed to influence so many people and kill so many people and create so much death and destruction throughout the world And you see here a lot of what that is about. The propaganda. This monitor is one of the few in the museum that has any sound at all, and that is just so you can see the overwhelming effect that this Nazi propaganda had on small boys and girls, teaching children to hate. You have here a lot of the other propaganda, everything, including children's books, the little pencils that they used in grade school, all the way to the belt buckles and the knives and the rings, and everything had Nazi insignia. Children's books had pictures of Hitler and swastikas. It was a very large effort to teach children to hate, and this is exactly what we talk about here. Is if you can teach children to hate, obviously you can teach them to be compassionate and caring, and that's what you want to try to work on. You look all the beginnings of the Holocaust, what happens. Of course, I mentioned the Nuremberg laws, which started to restrict the ability of Jewish people to function in society, keeping them from being able to go to school or to practice law or to be doctors or to even have businesses. And then we go through Kristallnacht, which was the Night of Broken Glass in 1938, when the German government basically allowed a massive demonstration against Jews. Synagogues were burned, a lot of destruction. And then you move through Kristallnacht into eventually the ghetto situation, where you have the Jews being pushed into small areas of the cities. Areas that would normally house 1,000 people had, tens of thousands of people there. And we have some cobblestones from one of the ghettos here in front of us. The cobblestones are from Chlodna Street in the Warsaw Ghetto, one of the largest ghettos. And you move through ghettoization. Finally, the Germans turn and attack the Soviet Union, and at that point they began a new method, and this was after the ghettos, which were very horrible, and conditions were horrible, and they were designed to kill people, and they allowed people to die. What you have then are the actual death camps. They decided they needed to kill people en masse. This was mass murder, planned mass murder. You see some of the shooting. Initially, groups called Einsatzgruppen went out and just assassinated everybody. They just killed everybody by shooting them in the back of the head after they forced them to dig their own graves. At a certain point, they had a conference of many educated people. This was the Wannsee Conference in 1941. And you see on the wall up here the list that they came up with of the number of Jews that were still left in Europe and the areas that they thought that they would take over, and how many they needed to still kill. And they had to come up with a way of doing that, and that was the industrialization of death. This was when they finally came up with the actual death camps and the use of gas and ways of killing people in a more, if you will, efficient manner. This room also goes through the fact that there was a lot of resistance, there were a lot of rescues, partisans, freedom fighters. People went into hiding. Of course, Anne Frank being one of the main stories having to do with hiding, but there were a lot of people that were in hiding. So you see the stories of a lot of other things that went on. I mean, there was resistance, there was strong resistance, but these people were unfortunately not well armed and were fighting against a major force. The German army, one of the most powerful in the world. It took the entire rest of the world to defeat them in the war. You did have people who fought heroically. The Warsaw Ghetto withstood the onslaught of the German army for a month. And remember, the German army overran the entire country of Poland in 2 weeks. So the Warsaw Ghetto, they did resist there, and they refused to be deported to the death camps. So what they ended up doing, unfortunately, the Germans couldn't defeat them. They eventually burned the entire ghetto to the ground. We move around the corner now into the concentration camp area. You start to see the shipping of people in cattle cars to the death camps. And we talk about arrival and selection, and you see the selection process where, people who looked like they could provide slave labor were sent one direction, and women and children and old people, anybody who they felt would not be of any use, they went the other direction, and they went into the gas chambers. We do have some new displays of personal items. These are bits of eyeglasses from a archaeological dig in Buchenwald, one of the camps in Germany. So we're thankful to the country of Germany for sending these to us. But this is a personal connection. People wore these eyeglasses. This is something that everybody can connect to. We all know people who wear glasses. We all know people who have had glasses. So you can understand that personal connection. A lot of things that people don't understand are the vast network of death camps that were out there, the vast number of prisons, of concentration camps, of transit camps, and slave labor camps and everything. You have a map here that just shows some of them, but there were more than 3,000 camps overall, and this list here on the beige is just a list of a few of the camps that our local survivors were actually in. As we move into the concentration camp area, you see slave labor, the entryway to Auschwitz, and we do have a brick from one of the crematorium in Auschwitz. We also have a can that held pellets of what they called gift gas. It was Zyklon B. That was the cyanide gas that was used to kill people in the gas chambers. The uniform is a uniform from one of our survivors, Ziki Isaacson, who actually was still wearing this when he was liberated from Buchenwald. Children were considered enemies of the state, something that it was unusual in war, but in this case, children were marked for death. 1.5 million children were killed in the Holocaust. See the vast number of people in a selection process upon arrival at a camp, and of course a lot of graphic photographs. There is this slant wall over here that allows people to not see some of these pictures if they prefer not to. It also, any small children, the parents can keep them from seeing some of this. This is the evidence of mass murder and some of the things that happened, and some really horrible pictures included in there. Moving on into the museum, we will come up into the liberation area. This is kind of the next stage of when. And this is the American liberation. The Russians liberated, of course, from the east. The Americans liberated from the west and the south. And we have, been fortunate to have several liberators who live here in Houston, who can tell us firsthand what they saw, what they witnessed. You see a display here of some of the artifacts and things that our American GIs brought back with them. The camera was taken from a German officer at the gates of Dachau. Other pictures of what was found upon arrival, just the vast, lines of corpses, bodies stacked like cordwood, things that the soldiers weren't prepared for and couldn't believe that they were seeing, even after battle-hardened soldiers. We've had soldiers who went through D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, fought all the way across Europe, and were stunned then to find this on the other end when they came into these death camps in Germany. Of course, after the war, Germany was in shambles. Families were lost, countries were destroyed, cities were gone, and people had no identification anymore. They had lost everything. This is just a little bit about the displaced persons camps. And of course, there was very little compassion after the war. Holocaust survivors, going back to their hometowns, found that they still weren't welcome, and people had taken their homes, had taken their possessions, and didn't want to give them back. Oftentimes, survivors would go back and they were assaulted or murdered. So this led eventually to the foundation of a Jewish state, and that was the state of Israel, which was founded in 1948. Many of the European Jews went to Israel when it was founded. Of course, many came to the United States, and quite a few settled here in Houston. And we do see here at the end of our exhibition the survivor wall listing 864 survivors who have lived in Houston since World War II ended. And of course, not all of them are still here today, but that is a big part of what we are all about, is the survivors and the fact that they can tell you personally, firsthand, what they went through and what they saw. You do get a little bit of that in Voices, which is in our theater here, and that is just small snips of oral testimony that we have here of our Holocaust survivors.
Seen war, death at Omaha, at the Battle of the Bulge, but I never was prepared to witness something like Panama. I believe that all of us that were there at the time, that came back home, will never forget this. I know I haven't. I've asked my Lord to take it off my mind, but I see him today as had so many, especially the children. God forbid that in the future there will be men like these that cause so much anguish, suffering to a human being. It's inhuman what the Nazis did to the Jewish people.
I could see when they were shooting, there were 5 men from one side of the pits, 5 men from the other side, and that was the second and the third pit, the same way. And they were shooting. I could see the 5 men were falling from one side and then from the other side. When they were shooting, they made them to undress. So the clothing were there already in the barrack. And somehow I noticed my father's coat. And I knew that he had something there. And I found a little picture. And this is the only thing that I have left for my family.
Were women, children, old men, religious people. You asked to defend yourself against tanks, heavy armor, bombless airplanes. 50 million Frenchmen couldn't defend themselves. 30 million Poles couldn't defend themselves. How outrageous is for anyone to say that the few Jewish people who were peaceful, living for centuries, they should have defeated the Germans and defended themselves.
I hope that this interview gave you a good taste of the Houston Museum, Holocaust Museum with Steve Johnson's mini tour for you. For those of you who want to know more about it, it's at 5401 Caroline in the Museum District, and it's hmh.org for their website. Just to give you a note, I was listening to one of the speakers on the Voices video footage in this museum, and one of the survivors was saying that there are good people, there are bad people, and then there are good people who don't do anything about the bad things that are happening in this world. So let's take what we've learned today and the lessons from the Holocaust and see what we can do to make a difference in our jobs and in our schools and in our towns and in our world, whether it be stopping somebody who has a negative comment about someone who's different, or be praying against the injustices happening in this world, or being more politically active, or giving financially. I was going to say to you also that the museum has volunteer positions that are open for those who are interested. And also I just wanted to share with you and say thank you to whoever those people are that helped to save and rescue my own parents when the Nazis were in Hungary. For a whole year, many families hid my parents and risked their lives to protect them. And so without that, I may not have been here. And this is a wonderful book called The Rescuers. You can get it here at the museum. Actually, they just recently had an exhibit. Gay Block and Malka Drucker are the authors, and they put together a compilation of these portraits of moral courage in the Holocaust. And it really gives you a good feeling about some people that did make a difference and step out and support the good and fight the bad. Shalom.
It is good to praise the Lord and make music to your name, O God Most High, to proclaim your love and faithfulness all the day and through the night. La la la, la 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 la. Trees of Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai, that to live forevermore. La la la, la 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 Destroy your enemies. King of Israel, Lord of all his king. Lord your God in the midst of you. Mighty is his name.